Today we'll be making the cross block, which is the center block of your quilt. This square uses fabrics B and C. You'll need 5 4.5-inch squares of fabric B and 4 4.5-inch squares of fabric C. Here are our 4.5-inch blocks of fabric B and fabric C. Now this block, unlike the last one we did, has rows that are different from each other. So for our first row here, we'll be sewing a green block to a yellow block. So you'll want to put them right side together, sew down. For row 2, we'll be sewing a yellow block to a yellow block. And then for row 3, we'll be back to that green and yellow. So go ahead and sew those 3 blocks together. Go ahead and press your seam to one side. On this one, I like to press it toward my yellow or B fabric. Now you'll have 2 blocks that look just like this, that are one yellow and one green. You'll have one block that looks like this with 2 yellows. Now with the yellows, you can press it either way unless your fabric is directional. If your fabric is directional, then you'll need to press it toward the left. So the seam will be pressed under, pushing this way toward the left if your fabric is directional. If your fabric is not directional, then this doesn't matter. Just press it to one side. Now go ahead and sew on that 3rd yellow square. And this time when you're done pressing, simply press toward the same side as you did before. The same with our green and yellow. You'll add another green here, and this time you'll just press in the same direction as your last seam. Okay, I've sewn my 3 rows, so now I have 2 rows that look like this and 1 row that looks like this. Now, if you'll notice, all of my seams are pressed in the same direction. Same on this one. All of the seams are pressed in the same direction. Now, what you want to do is as you match these up to sew, you'll want to be sure then that your seams are going in opposite direction. So this goes this way and this one goes this way. Meaning, if you'll remember from our last square, we can lock those seams like this to make our sharp corners. So this time you'll want to lock your seam here, and then you'll need to do a second lock here. Now, it can be easy to think when you pin a quilt square to start at one end and start pinning and move your way down. But when you have seams to lock, you want to start by locking any seams you have and then pinning in between and at your ends afterward to be sure that your fabric doesn't gather funny. So begin pinning here and here. Just like that. We have our 2 pins at our locked seams. Now it's up to you how many pins you add. I sometimes will put one at the beginning and the end, but not always. If I have a larger quilt square, like maybe 12-inch blocks, I would certainly do that. But for this one, I'll just use 2 pins. So once you've pinned it, go ahead and sew down that seam. All right, you've sewn 2 rows together. Look at that. It looks like a T. You can press this either up or down. It doesn't matter. Just press it in one direction. Once you've pressed it, you'll want to do the same thing with that top layer. So now we'll add our next one, and again, begin by pinning your seams here and here. Once you've pinned your seams, you can add any other pins that you need, and then go ahead and sew. Once you've sewn that final seam, just be sure all your seams are pointing in the same direction. And voila! You made another quilt square. Well done! Be sure and share a picture with me at Quarantine Quilting on Instagram or in our Facebook group.